I
Hello,
see.
everyone, and welcome. My name is Susan Deutsch, and I'm the program manager here at the Muse Writers Center. We are a 501c nonprofit located in Norfolk, Virginia, and we provide creative writing classes, wonderful literary events such as this one, and outreach programs. So if you want to learn more, check out the-muse.org. Also, all of our teen classes are free this semester. So if you have any creative teens ages 12 to 19, please go ahead and direct them towards our website. It's a really wonderful, wonderful community. Highly recommend. I'm a little biased. I do teach some of our teen classes, so would definitely recommend pointing them in that direction. Here with us tonight, we have Diane Fine, who is also a teacher at the Muse and a wonderful screenwriter, and is also on the Muse board of directors. And she will be introducing our guest tonight. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Diane.
Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. I see we have more and more participants showing up. Thank you so much for coming. I see a lot of my students on there. Thank you guys for all coming. I'm so thrilled to see you. And I'm very excited to welcome to Hampton Roads Muse/Internet World my dear friend, Kelly Edwards, and she's an incredibly impressive person. She's a veteran producer and creative executive in Hollywood, and she has worked at every major studio in Hollywood. Originally, she was a feature executive on the Sony and Disney lots, and then she eventually shifted her focus to television, where she served as a development executive at both Fox and UPN networks. After producing a drama series for Paramount, she moved on to NBCUniversal, where she oversaw diversity for their 20 networks. She spent her final stint as an executive creating HBO's Emerging Artists Program. And then as HBO Warner's Media SVP of Talent Development for 7 years, Kelly oversaw all of the Emerging Artists programs for HBO, HBO Max, and Turner, both domestic and abroad. Her career spans both television and film, having served as the key corporate diversity executive at Comcast NBCUniversal and a creative executive for both director Gary Marshall and producer Laura Ziskin, both incredibly, fabulous people who, if you don't know who they are, run to IMDb to check them out. After moving to television, she spent 6 years as a senior executive at Fox, where she developed Living Single, Clueless, The Wild Thornberrys, and other shows. And as SVP of comedy development at UPN, she developed Girlfriends, The Parkers, and Malcolm in the Middle. She also produced the movie of the week, A Christmas Detour for Hallmark, and the 1-hour drama series, Sex, Loves, and Secrets. She holds a BA in theater from Vassar and an MFA in writing for film and TV from Emerson College. And she has been a Sundance Episodic Lab Fellow, mouthful, and was recently staffed on the new Fox drama Our Kind of People. Her new book, The Executive Chair, A Writer's Guide to TV Series Development, was released in October of 2021. So welcome to the Muse Writers Center virtual space, Kelly.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. It's so good to see you too.
Yeah, Susan, I just wanted to make sure that Kelly appears when she speaks, because so far it's mostly having just the lightning bolt thing. So please make sure that we speak when we're speaking, it comes to us, because I think we had that problem last time. Sorry. In any case, so I loved your book, Kelly. We're going to put, we put a link in the chat to where you can buy Kelly's book at bookshop.org, because I believe that we should support our local independent booksellers rather than the large retailers, mega retailers, as it were. Oh, it says, yes, you're side by side in the live stream recording. Okay, thank you, because it's not on my thing, but that's fine. Okay, so please take a look at her book if you're interested after we spend an hour chit-chatting, because it is fantastic. And as I told Kelly, I just wish that something like this existed when I finished film school way back in the wagon train days, because there was nothing like this with like super duper nuts and bolts of what to do and what not to do. Even better, what not to do when you're trying to make your way as a writer. It talks about every conceivable kind of thing about like how to write thank you notes, what to wear, what not to wear. I'm sure she's going to tell us some of these funny stories. pitching, writing pilots, spec scripts, lunches, dinners, drinks, what to do to if you have sold your script, what to do if you haven't sold your script, agents, managers. I mean, it talks about every single possible question you could possibly have. And it's so great because it's a guide for TV writers, but written from the executive's point of view, which I think is invaluable. And I think there's probably not that many people in Hollywood who have both experience. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, Kelly, was you just very recently moved from being the longtime executive with all those incredible credits to being a writer on a show. And I was wondering about how you chose to do that, make that change in your life, and then how it's going.
It's like those pictures, how it's, well, was it how it was, how it's going? It was actually, I would say, a 360. This is actually where I started out. So it's not such a big leap for me to go back to writing, because one of my first jobs in the business was as a writer's assistant. And I worked for a couple of executive producers who had just come off of the Jeffersons at the time, and they had this big deal over at Embassy Studios, which was Norman Lear's company. And we were housed on the Sunset Gower lot, and we were in development for quite a while. And then they got a show on the air on CBS. So I had the chance to start off early on in my career. It was probably my third job. I tell the story in the book that my first job really only lasted a month, but then I got a job working at a casting company, and the person who I was working and supporting there at the casting company knew these producers and knew that they were looking for someone to assist them. So I actually started off on that road, but there weren't a lot of opportunities at the time for a Black woman, trying to make her way as a writer. And so I ended up going into the executive ranks because I knew that I loved working with writers, and I knew that I loved just the written word in general. And I had my spec scripts. At the time I was designing women's spec scripts. So that's how long ago it was. And then, so this whole sort of trajectory was sort of a coming back to the beginning, really. It wasn't really that much of a leap for me because I'd always been writing and taking classes and improv classes and, script writing classes and novel writing classes. So I had this wealth of material that I'd been developing all along anyway. And I was really funneling a lot of those creative ambitions through the writers programs and through development. So it was a really, it really was sort of taking a sidestep away from the writing for myself and pushing that into helping other people understand their stories. So coming back into the writing thing, I around 2015, I made this huge life change, and I started divorce proceedings with my now ex-husband, who is actually one of my nearest friends. And I took a hard look at my life, and I went, I've really achieved everything that I wanted to achieve on the executive side. But what was still left unfulfilled in me was doing something for myself. And I went back to, well, who was that girl at 15 who wanted to do, what did she want to do, and why did she decide that she didn't want to, that wasn't the path for her? And I did a little bit of an examination of my life and realized that there were things that I felt like were left unsaid or left undone. And it became this kind of journey. And in 2016, I had a year of yes, where I just said yes to everything. And I ended up on 6 different continents. And I met the Dalai Lama, and I did ayahuasca a couple of times. And I started to do floating, which is, you go to these sensory deprivation tanks. And so I was sort of on this mission to reignite the teenager in me and to go, well, what did I want to do? And after that year, I decided that I ended up writing a script. It actually came to me fully formed in my dreams. And I got up and I just transcribed it, sent it to a friend, and my friend goes, "This is a TV show." And so I then finished writing that script and sent it off to Sundance and to an MFA program, and I got into both. So it just it kind of exploded. And at the same time, I had started to share some of my writings with people on Facebook. And it was a little bit of me testing the waters and putting myself out there, I think in a way that I hadn't done before. It was very, I was very guarded before. And then I think when you reach a certain age, and I think at that point I was probably 50 at the time, you realize that there's nothing to be afraid of. And there's something, that freedom that comes with being secure in yourself and knowing that no matter what, I will always have a job. I can always do this. But what if I tried something new? What's the worst thing that could happen? So I kind of took the reins off, and with the Facebook stuff and people, giving me positive feedback of these little, I call them bus stories. You can see them on my website, kellyedwards.co. I just felt like there was this storyteller that was was trying to beat the doors down to it's sort of like that little creature from Alien kind of trying to poke its way through my stomach. And that's what happened. So I ended up going to Sundance, and really Sundance was the game changer for me, because not only was it a public announcement that I was making this change, along with the fact that I was going to my MFA program, but I felt a shift inside my soul when I went to Sundance, where it really confirmed to me that I needed to make this leap. So at the top of 2020, before lockdown, I decided that I was just going to do this. And what was it like? It was frightening. It was I knew in my soul that it was the right thing to do at the time. And then the day that my last check arrived from HBO, I went, oh, wow, that hurts. It's given up a lot. But then I did the book, and the book was really affirming. And then about 8 months later, I was on staff of a show. So I kind of feel like the universe kept saying, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it too much. And it's happening.
Excellent. And how is it being on the staff after all this time of working with writers? What's it like? And especially, what is it like to get executive notes?
Oh, well, the great thing is I haven't really had to get executive notes, because the showrunner gets them all and then funnels them back. And so I haven't really had the pain of that. I have worked though with producers, and getting those kinds of notes can be a little daunting, but I'm the kind of person that I love notes. So I want anything that's going to help me be better. And if you want to tear my thing apart, that's fine. I don't have the ego or the I don't feel that sort of pain that I think some writers do, where it's like it personally mortally wounds you. I don't have it.
Maybe because you have so much experience in collaborating in this, and that like ideas are dime a dozen kind of enough.
Yes, exactly. Right. I love getting in there and then sort of ripping something apart and saying, no, it should work better this way or that way. And like I said, I feel like anything that's going to help me be a better writer is good information. Whether you hated it, I can parse out where and why you hate it, so long as you're giving me the note in a respectful tone. I'm good with that. So, but I think that most people are, genuinely, if they've read your script, they're trying to be helpful. It's a lot of work for someone to read your script. So I kind of feel like there's validity in whatever they're saying.
Yeah. And I love that, like, a lot of times, like, as a person who's asked to read a script and give feedback, and then the people don't want feedback, I was like, well, you asked me to read the script.
Right. Right. I think I'm out of my day. Exactly. Right. But being on staff has been amazing. I had a fantastic experience, because not only is the showrunner and the room so kind and supportive, but we're also on a show that's a lot of fun to write. But it's been unbelievable. And I'm sure that people who sometimes have their first time in a writer's room and they, are not in such a supportive environment, I can see how it would be a terrible experience, but I feel very, very fortunate, very lucky.
I think that's probably unusual, but that's so great to hear. And I'd like you to tell our listeners, I guess you call them our audience, our friends on our Zoom, about our kind of people. I watched the pilot. I thought it was really fun. It's on Fox. And will you just sort of describe the show?
Yeah, it is. It is I think it's an incredibly, it's so entertaining, and it's a lot of fun to work on. The entire cast has been fantastic. And we were out in the middle of North Carolina, in Wilmington, North Carolina, which couldn't have been farther from my other experiences being on set of a show. but and they have weather like crazy out there, but it's a
We're
show.
not that far from there. We're just north of there.
Yeah. So you know what it's like. So it's a show about a young woman who comes to Martha's Vineyard, and she has a hair care line, and she discovers while she's there, kind of taking possession of a building that her mother has left her. She discovers that she's actually the daughter of one of the richest men in Martha's Vineyard, and all of the trouble that comes with it, because that man has a very dark secret. And so he's trying to keep her out of the family, information and business. And she's trying to work her way in. And it's fun in a lot of ways. It's a bit escapist, and it's wish fulfillment. And we're doing things on yachts and country clubs, and it's a lot of beach work. So it couldn't be more entertaining. And if you like anything that's sort of, it's about the haves and have-nots, and about the disparate, the wealth, the disparate, societal stratas. It's all of that and more. And there's lots of fun, heightened kinds of emotions running through it all the time.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And it's wow, one party after the next. It was gorgeous. The production
Exactly.
design is amazing. The costumes are amazing. It was like, what? It was great. I want to go to those parties.
Yeah. There's one, I think one of my favorite episodes. There are a lot of them are there's like a cotillion in it. But one of my favorite episodes is the one where they do a whole 1920s theme. And it's just
cool.
Glorious. It's just a beautiful.
The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
That's awesome. Great. Well, one of our guests in the chat over here is saying how much she loves the show. Letisa, thank you so much. It is a great show. Check it out on Fox, and I think streaming on Hulu is where I watch.
Yes, watch it on Hulu.
Thank you so much. Okay, that is so cool. And I'm congratulate you for making that change, and making it so quickly is totally amazing that you got staffed so fast. And I'm super
I feel
impressed.
very, very fortunate. I know that's not normal, but
No.
I feel really fortunate.
So did you have like a spec that you sent out to get that job? Did you first get representation? What was sort of your way? I know it's different because you know a lot of people, you've been working in the industry a long time, but what was sort of the path that you tread to get in that position?
Okay, so after Sundance, the last thing that you do at Sundance is you spend, I'm going to say, the last few hours talking through what your game plan is, and who do you know, and who can they put you in touch with in terms of representation. And so we had a whole plan when I left Sundance, and they made some phone calls and I made some phone calls, and I talked to a few managers and landed with 3 Arts. And so I had representation when I came out of Sundance. Or I would say within a couple of months of being at Sundance. And there, I think there was a combination of things. I think, I had a relationship with the showrunner of the show, because she was staffed on Girlfriends ages ago, which was my show. I'd known her personally, outside of that. So we had a relationship, and coincidentally, maybe a couple of weeks before I was invited onto the show, I had pinged her on Facebook, because we're Facebook friends, to recommend another writer for another one of her shows. So I think, I don't know if this is true or not, but she probably saw my name at one point. I'm sure 3 Arts had sent my material over to her. I didn't have a drama spec. I considered myself a comedy writer. And I think that tonally this show worked really well for me, because even though it is a drama, there's a lot of humor to it. There's some lightness to it. So I had a couple of specs coming out of Sundance, I'm going to say at least, and the MFA program. So I've been developing material. So I had an Atlanta spec sample. I had 2 half-hour comedy specs, original pieces. I had a feature film that was like a comedic action piece. And then I had some shorts. And after, I think they'd sent over one of the thing that I had gotten into my MFA program and gotten into Sundance with, I believe she read that, but then asked for another piece of material. And I believe that they sent one of the shorts, which is, again, you just never know. And it was a much more dramatic piece. So I think that having the range of material really helped, even if I didn't have an hour that I could.
That's so interesting because, my students are asking me, oh, what should I'm like, write similar thing, but actually in your case, having a broader kind of range of different tones or types of genres helped you in that case. I think I've always heard sort of the opposite.
It wasn't wildly different though. So I would say I was still staying in my lane. It was still female lead. It was still relationship. So I think that I still had, it wasn't like I was doing something completely randomly different. It still was it was adjacent to what I was doing. So I'm finding that as I'm broadening out my portfolio, and I do need more of an hour-long spec original piece, I am trying not to veer too far away from who I think I am. And I definitely know there are certain things that I don't do well. And then there are things that I do well. And I feel like everything that I do, there's a little bit, even if it's a dramatic piece, there's a little bit of a comedy bit to it. There's a little bit of lightness or humor. So I do think that I don't stray that far from who I feel I am. So I do feel like there's value and there's wisdom in sticking close to who you think you are as a writer, even if that means that you don't necessarily get every job. Because a friend of mine just recently asked me if I wanted to be put up for something. And I said, I don't know that I have the right material, but I really don't know that I'm the person that can write that well. I could pretend and I could, we could go for those jobs and sort of chase those little threads. But I think ultimately I'd probably be better off with something that's got a little bit of humor in it. Relationship for sure. Black female at the center, probably really, really helpful for me. I'm doing something right now. I do a lot of things about being mom, but those things seep in there. So I do feel like there's some things that are regular kinds of themes that I tend to, or at least I would say family connections, really, stick to sort of the core of who I am.
And so would you recommend that to anyone who was asking about breaking in about the kind of material that they should generate to that? Like I have these, 6 things that I do well and sort of keep those in there together.
Yeah, I do. I think that what confuses people, and particularly executives, is when you have something that is so different than the other things that you write and you're just trying to get the job. You're not trying to get the best job for you. So I do think that when you are looking at building your portfolio, have things that stay primarily in your lane, whatever that lane is. If you know that you do a lot of fantasy stuff, you do, a friend of mine just said, he goes, I kind of think of you as escapist. And I went, yeah, I guess that is a really good thread. Escapism does help, but I don't necessarily do fantasy. I don't do things like Lord of the Rings would probably not be the perfect thing for me. I don't do like my lady, those kind of huzzah kind of things. I'm not that person, but I do things like, spooky things. Like I just wrote a script that has a lot of twists and turns in it, but it's on a paranormal kind of thing. So I will do that. But I definitely know that for me, there's a thread that goes through all that. So I think that I would say if you're coming into the business, pretty much stay in your lane. But if you are a comedy, you can have an hour comedy, you can have a half-hour comedy, you can do dark comedy, you can be flexible, but it should say something about who you are as a writer, because people are going to ask, what's your second sample? And you should have something that's in the vein of the thing that you sent them the first time.
Right. Even if it's not their show, like it's hard to predict like the things that you're going to be up for and what they're exactly. Right. That's the tricky thing.
Yeah. But if you're going to be a comedy writer, write at least 2 comedy specs. If drama, same thing. If you feel as though you're an hour genre person, make sure that you have 2 things that are in the same kind of wheelhouse. One can be a ghost story and one can be sci-fi, but it should pretty much be something that when they say, hey, what's your second sample, it tells the same story. It doesn't mean that you have a a half-hour comedy along with your dark and brooding drama, then people will go, I don't think that person knows what they're doing. You know?
Excellent advice. Let me just pause to just say, people are putting questions in the chat, but also if you wouldn't mind using the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, it says Q&A. And if you click on it, a little thing comes up, and then I will look from there as well. It's a little bit easier than in the chat because sometimes people put other things in the chat. Thank you very much. Well, you mentioned about doing existing show specs, and for a long time that was a thing, and then it seemed to be like not the thing, like
Right.
Don't do that, but now it's back. I can't keep track.
Yeah. I think that there's this old school feeling that I completely ascribe to this, which is you should be able to write in somebody else's voice, because if you can only do your own thing, then if you're given an assignment to write a script while you're on staff and you can't adapt to that other person's voice, then they're going to have to rewrite you, and it's going to be a miserable experience. So I do think that it's important for you to, first of all, write and exercise your muscles, whatever those muscles are. And you should be writing constantly. You should constantly be working on new material. And so I do think that it's important to have that. But then, yeah, there was this huge swing. And I'm going to say it happened somewhere around, because I was at NBC at the time when this whole shift happened. So I got there at 2007. So there was this growing movement of original material, which seemed to me very, I think, unfair to young writers who, when you're trying to come up with an idea and you're an experienced writer, it's hard. And not every experienced writer gets that script greenlit. If they did, then it would be, there would be a thing, but that's not a thing. So you're talking about these writers who are coming out of college, or or not college, and just writing on their own, and they're trying to figure out, well, how do I create a really great piece of original material? It's a very, very high bar. So, but it's become the thing, the original voice. So I do think that you should have both. I think the difference is now, the change back is some of the programs require you to have a spec. And I think it's primarily for this reason, a spec of an existing show. And I do think it's because they want to make sure that you can write in someone else's voice. And that's the most important thing to being on staff. And those programs are preparing you to be on staff. So I do I love that. I think that, back in the day when everyone was doing a Curb Your Enthusiasm spec, you got to the point where you just could not read one more of the same thing. And all of those A-list shows were being, you had to read just so many of the same thing. And I think that people got really, really tired of it. So when originals became, much more popular, people were, excited because, oh gosh, I don't have to read that same old, ER spec, for the 15th time.
Okay, so it's back, but it seems like the answer is both. Like
it's both. It's still tipped more in original, in the original favor.
Yeah, but I think not everybody is necessarily great at coming up with the whole concept for a whole pilot. Like maybe they're just a really good dialogue writer, or should be able to have you have to for different folks.
you have to really have all those skills, though. You really have to know structure, or if not structure, because when I was at HBO, we didn't necessarily look for structure. You can teach structure, but you really should know how to tell a story, even if that story feels a little, wonky in terms of the structure. And I think that things have changed so much. Look at the streamers and how the storytelling has changed quite significantly because of the streamer part of it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think that things are changing all the time. You just have to be able to create really interesting characters, put them on a journey, give them enough conflict so that it's dynamic. And then I think you're good.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. That's it in a nutshell. Excellent. All right. I've got some questions, so I'll just hog up the whole time, but let me let some of our attendees, I don't know what to refer to them as, our friends.
Yes.
Our friends in the world. Okay. So I have a delightful student named Brittany Boyd. Hi, Brittany. And she said, for starters, I just want to say that Girlfriends, The Parkers, and Living Single are my ultimate favorite shows.
Yay!
So she's a Kelly Edwards super fan. I know every episode for each verbatim, LOL. My question is, my first book will be published in about a month. Yay, congratulations. And my next goal is to put what I've learned in screenwriting and create a script for a miniseries. From a writer's perspective, what are some tips in adapting my novel into a script?
Well, miniseries is an interesting, I mean, people call them limited series now. We don't even call them miniseries, although when I was growing up, they were all miniseries and movie of the week. So, I think that things are changing. So look at the marketplace and where are people selling those miniseries? Well, it's really streaming. You don't really even see them on network anymore. So first of all, you have to figure out, well, who's your market and where you're going to sell it and how long do those things usually last? Is it 6 episodes, 8 episodes? Is it 3 episodes? And how do you want to tell your story over that amount of time? And recently I did a Twitter thread about propulsivity. I had this big debate last year with producer, and she said, well, the network we were working with was like, we need your story to be propulsive. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I don't know what you're talking about. What does that mean? And so I had to do a little research and ended up having a conversation with a friend of mine who is at a network, and part of her job is the streaming side of it. And she said those are conversations that they have right now that they're still trying to work out. But that the big thing was that you need for an audience to get past episode 3. So how do you keep that dynamic storytelling going so that you are forcing them to continue with your series? So make sure that whatever that is in your script, so that you don't close end anything. You just keep it going until the end. And the way that I outlined it on the Twitter thread was, if you think about your limited series as a feature film, that's the structure that you're looking for. So it's somebody it's a character who has a goal, obviously an obstacle, but that goal gets resolved in episode 7 or 8 or whatever it is. And it's a single goal. So if you go back and you think about 1883, I've got to get these, however many people, immigrants from, I don't want to say Germany. I don't remember what they was, but from Texas to Oregon. It's a single goal. And along the way, you're going to hit these different things that are the problems along the way. So we've already set up, this is a feature film sort of trajectory. And we've got to go from point A to point B. We know what point B is, and we know there's going to be obstacles along the way. The same thing with, Queen's Gambit, same thing with just about every limited series these days. But you can also say that for every series now has this arc. So, it's even as slight as a Rami has, I want to be a good Muslim. So it's a very, very slight, low concept kind of idea, but it's still one goal. And you're going to see all the things that he's going to do in order to become better than he is yesterday. So if you look at it that way, it really simplifies everything. If you think about that structure for feature films, it's the same way. You're going to have at some point a midpoint. You're going to have, the whole, everything is pretty much the same way you can outline. So, and then just do it. So if you're going to take your book or your IP or whatever that is, and I love that she's creating from her own work, because then there's underlying rights that they'll have to secure. But then you've got your, then you can work from that, and just hopefully in your book, you've got the beginning, middle, and end already plotted out. It should be a lot easier to do than to come up with it from whole cloth, which is always the hard part, right? When you're creating something, and then you get to the middle of it and you go, none of it works. Well, she's already worked it out.
Right. Excellent. Great answer. Thank you. I hope that was helpful. Brittany. One of my other students, Liz Rosetto. Hi, Liz. Says, thank you for sharing your inspiring story. I'm looking to break in as a TV writer in my 40s. Any advice for those of us no longer in our 20s and trying to break in?
Well, I broke in at 58. I think, again, a lot of this is just relationships. So it depends on a lot of things. So you're in your 40s, and by the way, my goodness, there's never been a better time to break into entertainment, when you can get in through so many different doors and you can create your IP. You can create your graphic novel or write your short story or do a podcast or do an audio drama or direct your film or have someone direct it for you and go to the festival circuit. There's just endless amounts of inroads. And look at, Issa Rae, who was just winning the NAACP Image Awards this weekend. And, she made her thing. And then Hollywood came calling. So you can do it any different kind of way. And that has no age limit. And I think that people are now seeing that experience and a world vision and a history behind you actually adds to your amount of storytelling as opposed to being a detractor. It's not always easy. It's never easy, but what else are we going to do? Right? We're going to have to tell a story some kind of way. It boils down to relationships at that point. So let's just say you've got 3 great pieces of material that you're going out with. You may or may not find representation before you sell something, but you're going to knock on every door. You're going to talk to every person. And you're going to establish real relationships with people, not just transactional relationships, which don't last, but real relationships. And you're going to figure out a way to infiltrate this business based on who you know. You're going to go to all the parties and you're going to show up to the festivals and you're going to mingle. And all of that together creates a village around you. And if you think about the long game, we are in this not just to sell one project, we're in this to sell hopefully many projects over the course of another 30 years of your career. So think about it that way, that you are building a whole community of people who are going to be helping you tell your story, and you're going to help them tell theirs as well. So it really is, when they say it's who you know, it really is. It goes down to, those relationships will help you.
Well, just because you happen to mention your Twitter thread in your previous answer, what is your Twitter handle so that these guys can follow you, talk about propulsivity and stuff?
Oh my God, I don't even know what my Twitter handle. Let me look it up. Hold on.
Okay.
I am at Kelly Edwards _co.
Okay.
Yep.
Kelly Edwards _co. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Just so they can follow you. Why not?
Yeah, follow me.
All right. I have lots more. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. I have a student named Erica, former student named Erica. Hi, Erica. I remember you. And she says, hi, I'm a previous student of Professor Fine. Yes, I know. Okay. She said, when you write a treatment, how much exposition do you include? How do you keep it interesting and compressed at the same time? How do you know what to leave out? Oh, I'm not sure exactly what the treatment is for, but
that's the first question. Yeah, that's the first question. I think that treatments may have been something that people did a long time ago. Right now, I think the only reason to have a treatment is for yourself. But I don't think you're probably not going to be sending it out to anybody. You might do a Bible for a project or a script, or you might do a treatment in order to prepare for a pitch. So I would say if you're doing it for that, then it's really about how much information you need in order to pitch your project. And you're going to keep it as dynamic as possible because you only have 15 minutes to pitch your show. So I think that that's probably the reason that you might include exposition or not include, it's going to be backstory. It's going to be information that you need in order to tell people what's happening so they understand they're on the road with you. Otherwise, I don't know that I do treatments. You could do a deck, you could do a Bible. You might do a treatment if you're going to share the general idea of your project with somebody. Maybe it's a producer and they just want a little bit of a write-up. But in that case, I would keep it short enough that they understand what you're trying to get across, but you probably wouldn't necessarily do a 10-page treatment. I would say maybe 3.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I have my students do treatments if they're having trouble, like I feel like writing in prose, writing your story almost like a short story kind of sometimes points out story problems to you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I use it like for a tool like that, but not for a sales tool necessarily. Okay, my also former student from my ASAP workshop, John Pitts. Hi, John. Says, Kelly, why did you get interested in the business?
Well, I think, and Diane, you will understand this. So I went to dance class every day after high school. And I would have to take the bus down Pico from Beverly High. I'd have to walk down to Pico, and then we took a bus, me and Melanie, and we would get on the bus and go to Stanley Holden Dance Center, which passed by Fox Studios every single day. And I would look up at Fox Studios and just go, oh, that looks so cool. I wonder what they do there. But I was also a huge fan of old musicals back in the day, and old movies. And every Saturday or Sunday I would watch, old black and white movies like the Marx Brothers or Abbott and Costello. So I was just always a huge fan of that. And when I realized that, they made those things there at Fox Studios, I was in. I did not know how they made it, but I wanted to be a part of that. And so when I got out of college, I knew that I wanted to get into the business, and I ended up having a friend from high school who was leaving his job and needed someone to fill in for about a month. And I had known the manager of that company since I was a kid. We weren't close at the time, but my family knew her family, and it just seemed like a perfect fit. And again, I didn't know what I wanted to do in the business, but I was trying things out. So I worked for her for a month, and I was terrible at it. And before I got fired, I walked over to the casting company across the courtyard and worked for them. And I thought, well, maybe I would want to be a casting person, which I really, really loved the process. But I also realized that very early on that they didn't make any real decisions at the top. Like they would, you don't get to cast Brad Pitt in anything. Brad Pitt comes with a package. And I did not realize that you could cast the smaller parts, but not the big parts. And I think I was just looking for who makes those creative decisions. And that just led me on a very windy road to a lot of different jobs in a lot of different areas before I figured out, oh, this is the thing that I really want to do. I think that's the easiest way to say it. I mean, there's so many little, nooks and crannies you can get into in that. And that I was an avid reader. And like I said, I did watch every single old movie known to me, because we had something called the 3:30 movie, the 3:30 afternoon movie back in LA back in the day. And every single, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, Gene Kelly movie, the Beach Blanket Bingo movies, everything would come on then. And I was just enamored and desperately wanted to be, in the chorus of some, musical that just didn't exist anymore. But this at least this part existed, where you got to play in the sandbox with a lot of creative people every day.
That's great. And it segues perfectly to a burning question, which all my students always ask me, which is, do you have to be in LA or New York or wherever, Atlanta, to do this work?
Wow, things have changed. In the last 2 years, things have changed drastically. So the new answer is no, but really the answer is, it depends. It depends. If we go back to a non-COVID, non-distanced, some sort of life where people are pitching in person, yes, you have to be here. And New York was really much more features than it was TV anyway. There are TV things that happen, but the bulk of everything television happens in Los Angeles. So the big answer is, if we go back to the way it was before and people are meeting in person, yes, you have to be here. You have to be here because all the screenings happen here, where you mix and mingle with people, the panel discussions, the mixers, the programs, like everything happens in Los Angeles, and you need to be in the mix, and you need to know people here, and people want to work with people they know. So they want to vouch for people who they know. And if they've only met you on screen, they're going to pick the person that they've actually met with and they know and they vibe with. It's hard to vibe with a screen. So, but if we don't, and we're still in a hybrid sort of situation, sure, you can actually have a career from a distance. I don't know what the future is going to bring. I think that this has become so convenient that people are going to stay taking meetings. I think if I were sitting in an executive chair, I'd go, hey, I could take many more meetings in a row if I'm doing it on Zoom, as opposed to doing it in person, because in person, there's the waiting time, there's a lag time, there's people have to park, they have to drive. There's so much more that takes time and it's exhausting. This is a lot easier, but I know for myself, I'm better in a room. I can sell the hell out of people in the room. It's harder for me on screen. There's also this thing that where it's easier for people to say no on a screen than it is in the room when it's like you could feel the electricity of a pitch and you go, oh yeah, I'm really feeling, and the hair goes up in the back of your neck when you hear something really cool. And, so there's something that's something really kind of cool and dynamic about being in person. But I do think that we're going to go through a shift, and we might be in this forever. We might do this forever or some sort of version of this. There will also be, though, a time where we do start to congregate again and we are at things again, and people are not, as tentative about in person. I think you're already starting to feel it. People are going back to the theater. So you're feeling like there's going to be this tipping point where people are going to start to congregate. And I think there's going to be a surge of, we're so freaking happy to be in a room with another human being, that there will be more of that. And barring any kind of other, variant that comes out, I do think that we'll be congregating and mixing, mingling, doing cocktails. And that is really how you build your relationships.
Excellent. Yes, I totally agree with you, and think it's just hard to meet people in a virtual space. Also, you got to go to screenings and then mixers.
It's so planned. Yeah, this is so planned. It's so antiseptic.
Yeah,
and there's something so artificial about it. And then what you're doing. It's so transactional. It's so, I'm here to meet you because you're going to pitch to me, as opposed to, hey, we just bumped into each other and guess what? We're going to be best friends from now on.
right.
It just doesn't have that. But I also know people who have been, like, there's a guy I know who was in New York, who ended up getting on staff of a show. Like, that happened all the time in this virtual world. And I was in Montana and I was on staff of a show that was, in theory, in Los Angeles. But I also think that the rooms will start to come back in person, and you have to be here for the rooms.
I think so too. Yeah, it's sort of, there's just something missing. You're right. Antiseptic. Okay, so Carmen Iglesias asks, she thanks you for taking the time to talk to us. And then she says, you mentioned earlier you took classes like improv. I love that idea. Do you recommend immersing yourself in learning different creative disciplines to help your writing?
100%. What going to the improv class, and thank you, Carmen, for that question. What it helped me with was, it helped me with my comedy, because it helped me get out of my own way and go. And I did the Groundlings, and I never laughed so much in my, 3 hours of laughter every Saturday, and my face would hurt. It would feel like it was freezing in this perpetual smile. But it helped me go, okay, let me learn the yes then and just roll with it and find the comedy where it was coming, and not try to edit myself and not try to feel like it had to, a story had to go in one particular way, but I could play and go in many different ways and let the character speak. So I did feel that it freed me, and it just helped me find my funny. I've also took a novel writing course it was like a Stanford continuing education thing. You can just find them online, and you don't have to, be Stanford brilliant to get, to pay your.
Or you could take them at the Muse Writers Center.
And take the use. Yeah. And I do think that switching up the discipline and how you are putting it out there, do a poem, do a short film, do a short story, that I feel like those help to open up your brain and unlock your brain. And it's just like when they say that, what was it? One of these tech people would say, now go play basketball, because you need to do something different. You need to let your brain rest on one side so that you can do something else, and you can find the solution doing something else. I think that happens for me with the work. If I'm working on my novel, and then I'm also working on a screenplay, sometimes the screenplay will help me unlock the problem with the novel. So I do think it's helpful to let the creativity out however it wants to come out. And that just might be a form that you are not quite sure, it's not regimented, and you can do everything. Go paint, for Christ's sake. You can paint your story.
A great answer. Wonderful answer. I totally agree with that. My student, Hannah Hens, who's my current ODU student, asks, how do you go about looking for internships and starting your career? Where do you even begin?
Well, if are you currently in school?
Yeah,
Did you-
she's my
okay.
ODU student. Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is a great time because, some of the internships require that you be in school at the time. So look at those online. Every single studio has them listed. Go to Warner Brothers, go to Disney, go wherever it is. But then you can also look at smaller production companies that might be looking. And again, it's going to be your network. So your network of people are going to be able to say, hey, there's something open over here, or somebody needs some help here. When I was in high school, I did an internship. My internships were really, I ended up going to the Geffen, and I was one of those people who handed out, programs and said, here's your seat in H2 or whatever. So having those things on your resume where it's just telling a story about how much you're interested in entertainment in general, whatever that is, whatever that storytelling piece of it is, put those on your resume. If you can, my kids ended up doing internships at film festivals. They always need people to hand out programs or to take tickets, and then you get to see things for free. So, there's a lot of different ways to start to build your resume. Start with the volunteering, and then, look for those internships online, talk to your friends. At HBO, we always had our internship application period way earlier than everybody else. So make sure that you are looking at those due dates because they come up very quickly. But then every city should have their own film commission and their own, there's a lot of ways to slice that loaf of bread. In LA, there's the LA mayor's office has a portal. They don't actually have internships, but they partner with all the studios and allow people to, use them as a funnel through them. New York has the New York, I think there's made in New York, but there's so many ways to go. If you go on to, I think the WGA probably has it, a list, and the PGA and the DGA, they all have tentacles. There's something out here called Hollywood CPR if you want to get in through production. So you just have to start to research those and look at the other ways in. You could get a PA job over at Intercity Filmmakers. There's Manifest Works. It's just a ton of places just to look for those internships. And then again, it's always helpful to have a hookup. So let's just say if you're applying to a particular internship at Warner Brothers and anybody at Warner Brothers who could say to the hiring manager or to the HR person, hey, can you flag this resume? They will select your resume out of the pile and push it to the top. So those recommendations do matter. It's when you try to send something blindly and you never hear back, it's usually because there are people who have started that process way before they even posted it. So you're coming in through a bucket of hundreds and hundreds of other resumes. And if you don't have any way for somebody to say, hey, no, yours is the one, you will get lost in the shuffle.
That's really good to know.
I was
That's
also going to say in the book too, I'm sorry, Dee Dee,
That's okay.
in the book too, there's also things like, and I didn't do an exhaustive list because there's just too much stuff that changes all the time. But if you are a person of color, the Emma Bowen Foundation has a fantastic internship program. So does T. Howard. And those are internships where you apply, you get selected, they place you with a company, and then they pay you, the company will pay you for your internship, which every company should these days, it's just the law. But in addition, they will also match the amount that goes to your college. So you will get paid twice. Essentially, your college gets paid, your tuition, part of your tuition gets paid, but also you will get paid. And they will take you from, as I think as a rising senior out of high school, I think, through your college degree. And some internships require you to be a sophomore in college. And some of them will also, allow you to be a grad student. So you just have to source. And I think be very specific about where you want to put your energy. So if you know that you want an internship in marketing at a major studio, then look for those and cultivate that list. So it's just there's a lot of ways to get in. Just get in.
Well, you're not even going to believe me when I tell you that there's 4 minutes left, because that went crazy fast.
Wow.
I have 1 million more questions, but I'm afraid we're not going to get to them, sadly. But that also just sort of segues perfectly into what I was just going to ask you about contests, fellowships, diversity programs. Like you recommend all those things, like and then like coverage places for cover fly and blacklist. And do you recommend all of those kind of things, or there's things to steer clear of?
Well, I think that anytime you can get feedback on your work, it's great, but you have to make sure that you're getting good feedback and it's from a trusted source. And I know that one of the major festivals recently got blown up online because they've had a history of farming their stuff out to people who are not qualified to give feedback. And then people have been getting feedback that has been detrimental to their mental health. So,
Wow.
so don't make sure that you trust the source. A lot of these places do it because they're trying to make money. But I will say this about contests and fellowships and all of that. Look for the ones that are reputable, that are going to help you move to the next level. If you just send your stuff out to a bunch of different places that are not meaningful to the town won't take notice. But if you are applying to, and you're getting somewhere of significance at Nichols, or something that's got a very good reputation, then do that in terms of contests. I do think that there are some really great programs out there. I think every studio and network that's got a program, they're all reputable and they all push their people forward. And I think that people have to understand that the reason to get into a program is there are multiple reasons. Number one, obviously you get pushed to the top of the food chain, right? So your stuff you get in a program, all of a sudden everybody knows who you are and everybody's rooting for you to get your next gig. And you have a team of people at whatever that studio or network is who are introducing you to your relationships. And that's the key. The key is that they are going to be they are actually another layer of management or agency representation. Because they are constantly pushing your name out into the universe. And as we said before, the key to this is relationships. So what a program will do is it'll shortcut your trajectory. If it takes somebody a 2 years to go from, hey, I've written my 3 great scripts, to, hey, I'm getting on staff, it's a minimum of 2 years. And why? Because that's the time it's going to take you to get to know the people in town and for them to get to know you. So at least 2 years has to go into the preparation before you can even start to have those meetings that you need. The programs will help shortcut that, because instantly your material is being asked for, and instantly you've got a whole team of people who are introducing you to every network that they have at that studio and trying to get you on staff and giving you showrunner meetings. So they have a vested interest in getting you hired. The other part that people don't talk about programs is that those programs are all linked. So if you get into Warner Brothers, as if I didn't know Rebecca Windsor at Warner Brothers, as if I didn't know Karen Horn, we all talked constantly. And when there was a need for a particular writer that had a particular skill, who would I go to but the team of other diversity professionals who would all go, hey, how about this person? How about that person? So we shared the information. So you don't just have one group of people who are working for you. You have 6 or 7 groups of people. Every year we had and I think they still do it. We had a meeting where we would share, here are the people that are in our programs. We would get them together and have conversations. We would get them together with the year prior so that they had mentor-mentee relationships. So there's a whole thing that goes on with programs. It's not just about your program. It's not just one. And that's why also people go to different programs. If you're really great at one program and you get in another program, that's great. It's not always a ticket to the fast track, but it's pretty good because you're just expanding your knowledge of people who are out there. Now, when you talk about things like Blacklist, obviously Blacklist has had some really great successes. I uncovered this Reddit thread recently where a guy completely, and I'll try to send it to you, Diane, outlined how to win the Blacklist, or what's the best way to not win it, but get the most out of it. And he had a whole thing, and I think it was a couple years old, but it was brilliant. And he dissected the whole reason to do it and how to do it so that you were getting the maximum benefit of it, not just doing it
Wow.
one at a time. So that's that. Coverfly, I don't know much about. I've heard good things about it. I know that that's the place that NBC was bringing their, was using as readers for their program. We didn't. We used HBO people, but I've heard good things about it. The thing that I worry about with some of those organizations that I can't speak to because I don't know the inner workings. But the reason that at HBO, we only used people who had either gone through our programs or readers who had been at HBO for a long time was two things. Number one, they knew what we were looking for at HBO, which is different from other programs. Like I said, we didn't look for structure. We looked for how deep do you understand character? That was our thing. And it could be a mess of a script, but if you were letting your blood out on the page, if you were, if all of your emotions were trickling out of those pages, then we wanted you. But it also, I knew that the people who were reading were diverse, that there was I can't say they weren't all diverse, but there was a lot of variety to the experiences that we have. I cannot vouch for some of these other organizations because I don't know, but I worry that if you are writing culturally specific material, you need to get the best read, and not everybody reads the same thing the same way. Not everybody likes the same thing the same way, but I wanted to give you the best opportunity to get read by somebody who understood, and could put your stuff forward. And so I look for diversity in readers. So if you can ask them, say, hey, what's the percentage? Can I get somebody who's from this background to read my stuff?
Oh, that's so interesting. That's so fascinating. Never occurred to me that you wouldn't know like who, it's like anonymous who's reading it and giving you.
Right. But it matters.
Yeah.
And I did talk to one organization years ago, and they said they didn't have a lot of diversity. And I was like, okay, not for me. We're not partnering. That's not okay.
Yeah.
So I think that those, and then, contests in general, if you're doing something like Final Draft, the Big Break, or, something that's got some like sizzle to it, those things I think do matter. I think people now take notice. I think, again, back in 2007, nobody noticed, nobody cared, but things are different now. Right. So yeah, it's worth it.
That's excellent. And we've already gone over 4 minutes, but my last question is, do you still paper the town with query letters? Does that still possible to get a manager or an agent or some sort of representation just from sending out a query letter? I'm Joe Schmo from Virginia, and my script is about XYZ.
I've heard that it does. I've never done that. I don't know, but I've sort of grown up in this business, so I don't know that I would ever not needed to. I have heard that people still do it. I think you have to have a really great query letter. Like, it's got to knock somebody's socks off, and it can't be too long. It should just be, pretty pithy. Maybe your log line should be, really great. And I think people sometimes struggle with log lines. So I do think that, sure, anything can happen. I don't know. I think the best bet would be if someone I know recommended a script to me or a writer to me, and I was excited by that, then I would read it. I went to Catalyst Festival last year and had a great time and connected with a couple of writers. And yeah, I would absolutely, not only would stay in touch, but I think, when they're ready to do something, I would connect with them again. But I think it's hard. If you think about all the tonnage of stuff and everybody who thinks that they've written a script and bombarding, agents and managers constantly with their material. And most of the time that material doesn't live up to the hype. So we're used to going, I'm not going to invest my time. We also can tell on the first page if you have the juice or you don't have the juice. I can't say guys, if you have the juice or you don't have the juice. So make sure that material is really good. Write that script and then set it aside and then come back to it 2 weeks later. And if it still knocks your socks off, great. But if it doesn't, do the work. I do that with my own writing. I just wrote a script. I thought it was really good. And I sent it to my manager and I didn't get any notes. And I thought, oh, it's so great. And I went back like a month later and I looked at it and I went, oh, no. I could do that so much better. So they say it's, writing is rewriting. So make sure it's really good because you won't get another chance.
Right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I'm so sorry, everyone who asked. I could see you wrote fabulous questions. We just didn't have the time. This was really, really great and fantastically helpful. I will just say one more time, in the chat, we put the link to bookshop.org's version, link to Kelly's wonderful book called The Executive Chair, A Writer's Guide to TV Series Development. And then also check out her website, kellyedwards.co, C-O, I believe, not com, but co.
Oh, CO. I don't know where that came from, but it works. And there's
Okay.
a lot of my bus stories are on there.
Oh, great.
So you'll be able to see a lot of the stuff. And then I'm writing a novel right now, so you can follow along with that.
When do you sleep?
I have ideas pouring out of me. Come look at it.
Clearly. And please also don't forget to visit the-muse.org for all of your other fabulous literary needs, including the classes that Kelly so wonderfully suggested that you all take in different disciplines besides the ones you already write in. So thank you very much. Everybody thanks you, Kelly. We really appreciate your time and wonderful, wonderful advice.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everyone for joining.